living with controlled load shedding of the electricity supply. Well, it's with us today, and it's going to be with us for quite a long time that we will have to be able to survive with controlled load shedding. I'm Dr. Wallace Vosloo, and I will be sharing some information which would be able to help you to live comfortably with the controlled load shedding situation we are in at this stage in South Africa. The heat, comfort, security, and light from a fire. It's amazing. All the darkness in the world cannot smother the light from one of those little single flames. A fire, one of the most useful tools to man. Yep, the survival rules of 3. The first 3 seconds, you need to decide to live. In your mind, you must already have the will, and you are going to survive. That is a very big decision. You must not just give up. You need to say, yes, yes, I can do it. And that is a very important aspect, because that's the mental drive that will make certain that you'd be able to handle all the other 3s. Now, the next 3 minutes is that your brain can't be without oxygen for too long, and 3 minutes without oxygen starts giving you issues. And you need to have that oxygen to the brain, and that means you need to take the oxygen in via your lungs, so you need to start breathing and be able to continue breathing. So that's very important. And the oxygen is transferred from your lungs to your brain through the blood. So you need to be able to bleed for less than 3 minutes, or stop your bleeding within 3 minutes, so that you don't have a problem with blood loss. And that blood loss obviously has got a lot of other issues, but one of the main things is that the blood is transporting the oxygen, so you need to sort out your bleeding by stopping it within 3 minutes as soon as possible. Then the next 3 is that within 30 minutes in a severe climatic condition, whether extremely hot or extremely cold, within 30 minutes you need to try and stabilize your core temperature of your body. Now, that is normally done very well with a shelter, so you would then within 3 hours try and get yourself up with a shelter to maintain and keep your body core temperature in the right area. And within that shelter, you're either going to protect yourself from the heat from the sun, or you're going to go and build a little fire and protect yourself from the cold. And the shelter, you could also make use of different types of materials to keep the cold out, but try and within 3 hours to get a shelter going so you can keep your body core temperature fine. Water is a very important issue, and 3 days without water, if you go longer than 3 days without water, you've got a problem. You're going to find that your tongue is swelling up, it's starting to dry, it's getting stuck in your mouth, got problems breathing. Then what would happen is that you would start for not worrying about the fact you won't be thirsty anymore. That's when you're already over the edge. Then your body is starting to break down. Rather drink water then that is most probably not of the nicest water, and most probably not of the safest water, but yeah, water is an issue. Then at the same time, something which normally comes to mind first for most of the people is food. Food is not the biggest issue. Food is about 3 weeks. Just make certain that you control your energy output in such a fashion that you can work with the amount of energy you have in the body as long as possible. But it's really with 3 weeks without food is not going to kill you. But after 3 weeks, you're going to start breaking down your body to the point that you better start eating and finding some nutrition, and you can do that. And here is one which a lot of people tend to forget about, and that is the 3 months without human interaction. You go bossies, okay? So you get the Wilson ball syndrome. And that normally is when it ends up where people basically end up committing suicide and so on. But these survival rules of 3, without them, you have big problems and you could die. The wealthiest person on earth is one that can stand naked with absolutely nothing but their wits. Daar staan jy. And know they have the practical knowledge and ability to survive everything. And what is important especially is the practical knowledge, which means that not just something you read in a book, it's something you have practiced and have mastered, and then being able to apply it, you can survive anywhere in the world. The world consumes in the order of 16 terawatt of energy per year. It's only going to get more. Now, what's available on Earth, physically on Earth in our reserves, that we can use to supply that energy for us so that we can survive? Coal, we're looking at about 900 terawatt year. That's it. There's not more coal. It's only going to get less. So if we're going to be biting into that coal, it's going to become less and less and less until the coal has been depleted. Uranium, we're looking at about 300 terawatt year maximum, including its derivatives. And oil, which is quite worrying, is 240 terawatt year. And we're using quite an amount of oil in the form of fuel. And when we start looking at our natural gas, which is in the same order class as well, it's about 215 terawatt year. That is what's available on Earth. And if we eat that up or use it up, that's it. So we will have to look at something else in the long term. Now, when we take a look at solar, which is a big nuclear reactor, which then basically takes 2 hydrogen atoms and combine them and then give off energy, and that energy is radiated out to the Earth in the form of particles which reach the surface of the Earth, and the amount of energy which is reaching the surface of the Earth from that large nuclear reactor is 23,000 terawatts. Now, derivatives from that, now remember, that is 23,000 terawatts per year. It's amazing. I mean, we get more energy from the sun per year than all the available resources we have on Earth in the form of reserves. So it's absolutely, it just makes sense that the future lies in solar. But it depends on how we're going to use that solar energy, and that's the main thing. The other resources now, which becomes available per year on Earth because of the radiation from the sun, is wind energy, biomass, hydro, geothermal, wave energy, and tidal energy. So you can see from a world perspective that in the future we will need to change the way we utilize our resources. Now, my feeling is that in the short term, to survive in the short term, we need to start looking at nuclear reactors as our energy source, which we use to stabilize our network. And that could be in the form of modular reactors and so on. And when we start looking at the short term as well, we then could bring in the wind and the solar to basically support the nuclear reactors, and where available, we can make use of the hydro potential and geothermal potentials which are there, but mainly your hydro potentials. For instance, the Congo River has got enough energy to be able to supply the whole of Africa and part of the Mediterranean if we can sort out the politics. But unfortunately, that is not such an easy issue to resolve. When we come back to the solar energy, which the whole biggest, largest energy source that's available, how can we utilize that and with something else which is in abundance on Earth? Now, seawater is in abundance on Earth. So if we can take seawater and use the energy from the sun to break up the seawater into hydrogen and oxygen, we can use the hydrogen, which is also the fuel source for the sun, by the way. Nature has decided that the fuel source for the sun, hydrogen, is the most efficient. So why don't we go and we make use of hydrogen as our main fuel source on Earth? So we need to develop a little engine, a little bio-nano engine, where we can use the energy from the sun to drive this little engine. And this little engine, micro little engine, little nano engine, can then be placed into seawater, and it converts the seawater into hydrogen and oxygen. And the hydrogen is used then either directly as a gas, which we can then use for heating and so on, or we can then use it in a fuel cell to convert over to electricity to drive our vehicles or our transportation systems and supply electricity to the world. Why we need controlled load shedding of the electricity supply? Well, you have a user which is basically demanding energy from the system, and the system needs to be supplied with that amount of energy. It's a supply-demand situation, and the two must match one another so that you can keep a frequency of 50 hertz. The 50 hertz frequency is basically the measure saying to you that the system is in balance. The amount of energy which is being supplied is equal to the amount of energy that is used by the customer and what is demanded from the system. The system has some inertia and so on in it, which basically will keep this process balanced. Now, when there's a loss of supply, so a generator or a power station, some power station has got some problem and it can't supply to the network anymore, and you've got this loss of supply, then you find that this whole system goes into a unbalance. Now, in an unbalanced situation, the demand from the system is more than what it can supply, and because of that, the supply is really having a hard time to get enough energy across, and then the frequency drops to levels below acceptability. And then what would happen then is that the system's inertia can't correct the situation, and you find that you can trip out your various supplies, and that becomes a brownout to a blackout situation. So what you need to do is you need to load shed so that you can then match your supply and demand again. So you need to get rid of some of your customers. You need to load shed, and you need to do that in time so that you prevent the system from going out of control. Now, once you've load shedded, you find that you've got less customers, which then basically the demand is now matched to the supply that's available, and your system is happy, and you're back to 50 hertz. Now, that's why we load shed. If we don't load shed, the system becomes unbalanced, and the amount of energy that's available from the generating supply cannot source enough energy to the end user that's demanding energy. So we need to load shed. And if you do this load shedding, which South Africa is very good at, correctly, you can prevent the system from tripping and prevent it from going into a brownout or blackout situation. So our national control is one of the best in the world to ensure that this system stays stable. But to get the system to stay stable, you need to go and you need to load shed. And load shedding is not a blackout. Load shedding is taking load off the system so that the supply can continue to source the amount of energy that's required. A brownout or a blackout, a brownout is where the system becomes unstable, and we still then, fortunately enough, manage to get some of the power stations disconnected from the system so they can stand alone and continue to spin and be available, so that we can then slowly but surely bring them back in so that we can build up the supply so that we can start getting our emergency demand side customers coupled up and get the system stable again. Now that can be done within days. When we're looking at the blackout, the system has gone into such a total imbalance that all the supply generators have all tripped, and all of them have actually gone and became totally useless until they are all restarted. And that can take weeks. And so we actually in South Africa have got a controlled load shedding situation. The probability of us going into brownout or blackout is very, very slim, very slim. The situation here is more that we have got a very good national control, which is controlling the network and the system in such a way that we are actually load shedding to prevent brownout and blackout. Okay, let's live comfortably with controlled load shedding. It's going to be there. You can't get rid of it. So for the next few years, we're going to have load shedding. That's it. Now, how can we live comfortably with load shedding? And we're going to be looking with a scenario that we're going to be without electricity for 2 to 4 hours, 8 hours maximum, maybe even more per day. And that's going to happen, as I said, for the next few years. Well, I would recommend the following. Now, this is definitely going to change your usage of electricity in your household because now you don't have electricity available for a certain amount of time. That's it. Now, if you decide that you're going to do absolutely nothing, you're going to sit back, accept being in the dark during load shedding, well, you're going to be able to survive the discomforts. You're not going to die. Remember the rules of three? You're okay. And further, on the bright side, you're definitely going to be saving on your electricity bill. Okay? So you're not going to die because of load shedding, excepting if you're sitting with a situation that you've got breathing apparatus or medical reasons why you need electricity. Well, then you need to make a plan and get yourself a interim supply, which we will deal with a little bit later. Now, here is how you deal with your situation for your medical emergency, or also at the same time to better your situation at home. You install a battery bank, which is charged from the power network with an inverter. Okay, so here is your little UPS which you install, and you get your supply from the utility, from the grid. You just plug it into a normal 3-point plug, boom, okay? Then what you can do is on this, you can connect your LED lights, you can charge your mobile phone or whatever you want to USB charge. Then connect onto this, you can connect your TV with your DSDVDs and all these things and so on, and your computers, and you can connect a fan in your one of your fridges, your refrigerator. And this system here can last you from, the batteries will last you from 5 to 10 years, depending on the type of batteries. And this system will be able to be selected large enough that it can supply you for that 6 to 8 hours for using the specific devices on it. This little UPS is available on the free market, and it's a nice and easy way to do it. Or you can install a standby generator with a changeover switch, but this damn thing makes a hell of a noise, and you're going to find your neighbors are not going to be too happy with it, and you need to run that generator quite regularly, and you need to have a fuel supply, and you'll have to do maintenance on it. I personally feel that a generator is more relevant when you start going away from the household, because remember, we're sitting with a household situation. When you go and you have a business or your restaurant or large shopping center, it's totally a different story there. You can look at the idea of a generator. Just a little short one, yeah. During the Second World War, where there was a fuel shortage, the guys used to run their cars on wood gas. And so what they would do there is put in wood, and then they would get the gases from the wood, and it's filtered, and then they use that to run their engine. And that's how they managed to do, it's called a gasifier, and it was basically used during the Second World War. It was also used in America when there was the fuel shortage for tractors and so on. Another little thing is that when you're sitting with a situation that the electricity goes on and then it goes off and then it goes on and then it goes off, it can basically induce surges onto your system, which could possibly be detrimental to some of your finer electronics and sensitive electronics that you have on your home network. So my personal suggestion, which I have done here at my house, is to put in surge arresters on your DB board, or even you can buy little surge arresters packages which you can put onto your power supply plugs, and you can get rid of these little surges. It also helps you for if you've got a high lighting environment to surge protect your equipment. Well, one of your biggest users of energy in your house is your hot water geyser. And if you decide that with load shedding, you're sitting with a situation that you don't want to take a cold shower or so on, which I think if you plan things correctly, it shouldn't be a necessity. But if you want to save energy, then you go and you put in a solar energy driven geyser system. You can get them where they directly heat or indirectly heat the water in the geyser. A very nice solution, which is the minimum change you have to do to your house, is by putting in PV panels, solar panels, and then you use the energy from that solar panels through a controller to basically have a heating element in your geyser that then is using solar energy to heat the water in your geyser. An excellent solution. Then the other way to get nice hot water is to go with the inline gas hot water geyser. It's, from my perspective, most probably not the safest thing to have in a house is a gas hot water geyser, but it's a good option if you need it. And then to save water, you can then basically use low flow shower heads. Now remember, so far we're not talking about major things, but it's stuff that could ease your scenario. If you want to, for instance, heat your jacuzzi, as the guys do quite often in the Nordic countries, is that they basically just have a tubing system where they have a fire in the middle and the water on its own, just because of the change in temperature, then circulates through this tube and then heats up the jacuzzi's water, and you can use your frying pan and so on. Well, I doubted whether any of you guys would really go that direction, but there's so many things you can do. Then you can install a gas stove and oven. Now you can either go the normal way, or if you're now really into it, you can now really go for it, okay? And you can put in one massive big gas stove and oven system. But you know, the scenario there is that you need to think, you know, whether you really want to go the gas route, but it's a nice option. It's a very nice option to do. To save electricity and to make certain that you optimize your electric use at home, induction heating stove are very nice. Those induction stove plates where it basically then induces a current into this pan, and the current circulating in the pan then with your hysteresis and so on, then basically heats up the pan. Very efficient. It's by far more efficient than any electric stove can be, and you'll find that it's an excellent option. Then, if you want to make use of the solar energy available, and I do that quite a lot, is that you can either use the box type of solar cooker, which is a slow cooker. So what happens is it takes the energy from the sun and then reflects it into this box, and the box has got a glass plate at the top, which then basically keeps the heat inside the box, but also then lets the rays through to heat up the area. And you can cook food beautifully. It's a slow cooker. So you find that this is a wonderful way. You can bake bread in it. You can make the most amazing oxtail in it. You can do chicken in it. You can do a leg of lamb. It's a fantastic option. But that is a slow cooker. So it's typically like a hot pot at home, a slow cooker pot at home. If you want to speed things up and you want to boil water in a few, like 10 minutes or so, then you go for a parabolic type of FOST solar cooker. Now you can put a pot down or a pan or a kettle, and for instance with a kettle, 10 minutes the water's boiling. Taking a look at a pot, it's like putting it onto the stove, and then you can first take your food in here and basically brown your meat, and take your onions and brown your onions and so on, and then from there you put it over into the slow cooker here and continue cooking. But I can tell you that to make breakfast, put on a pan and your oil is heated to the right temperature in minutes, and then you can start doing your eggs and your bacon and your sausage and so on. Very effective way of doing it, but it means you have to have change your lifestyle a little bit. And then you can make use, and obviously then the sun must be available. A very good, and I absolutely 100% recommend this, is to go and make use of a hot box or a Wonder Bag. This Wonder Bag is available in South Africa for a few $100. Now there what you do is, you either use your gas stove or your parabolic reflector cooker, or you use your induction heating element, and you bring up your food to a boil, okay? And then once your food is up to a boil, you go and you let it cook for about a few minutes just to make certain it reaches a nice maximum temperature. So you put a lot of heat into your pot and into your food, and then what you do is you put it inside your hot box or your Wonder Bag. Here's the Wonder Bag. And then you put the top on and you close it up, man, and you leave it. You can leave it, it will cook for 8 hours, but it will never burn because the temperature will never go higher. It will just slowly but surely drop. Now that works excellent. So you want some pop in the morning, say for instance oats pop. So what you do is you take your oats pop, put it into your pot, you bring it up to the boil, take it directly right there. Once it's boiled, you take it from there, put it into your Wonder Bag, and you close your Wonder Bag, boom, and the next morning you've got nice, warm, fully cooked, creamy porridge. It's fantastic. This is a definite must, and not only because of load shedding, but it's going to definitely ease your life. The other thing is that which we tend to forget about. Now we've load shedded, and man, can I do with a cup of coffee. You know, coffee is mos 'n inding, eh? And then at the same time, you want to really maybe have a cup of tea or something. Well, boil water beforehand, put it into your flask. Always keep your flasks full of hot water. And if you keep your flasks full of hot water, you always have hot water, and you don't have to go and put on the gas stove to go and make hot water. You already got hot water in your water flask. By the way, you can cook food in a flask, and that is amazing as well. We do it quite often when we 4x4ing. You put a handful of rice into the flask, you add boiling water, you close it, and in a few hours your rice is cooked. You can do the same with, as you did with the hot box or the Wonder Bag with porridge, with porridge and so on. Fantastic. These are simple little things. They don't cost much, but they're definitely going to ease your situation when it comes to load shedding. Now, your fridge. Folks, if you leave your fridge closed and you leave your deep freezer closed during load shedding, you don't have to worry about it, okay? You need to make certain that you minimize the in and out of your fridge. If you have a little UPS which can handle your fridge or freezer, well, then connect it up. And if you start looking at alternative storage mediums and so on, and there were guys that were running fridges from fire. You can go to paraffin fridges, you can go to gas fridges. Then in the Americas, they tend to, also in Europe and so on, they go underground for their fruit storage. I don't think that is really needed. But don't go and trip out because of your fridge or freezer. If you're really so worried, go across to gas or put in a suitable UPS that can supply them with electricity. Now, if you're looking at load shedding and you want to prepare properly for maybe the possibility of other things happening, it's always important to make certain that you prepare yourself for different situations. You could be stuck in the traffic for a day or two because of some stupid thing that's happened. I mean, those truck drivers that died because they didn't have water in their trucks. So what you do is that you keep your transport full of fuel, at least 500-kilometer range. And I always just keep my cars. I've got an old Land Cruiser. I always keep it full of fuel, so I know. Doesn't matter what happens, I've got a full tank. Then you normally have your spare wheel pumped up, and you have at least the following type of thing to keep in your boot, which will take you through any survival situation very easily. Because remember the survival rules of three, eh? So 5 liters of drinking water and purifying tablets, so you know your water issue is sorted out. First aid kit, and do a proper first aid course so you can stop your bleeding and so on. Large fire extinguisher. I can tell you one thing, there's nothing like a car fire. I've had that situation quite a few times where I had to help out people because they didn't have extinguishers, and I managed to save their car. You need a lighter with fire starters. If you need to make a little fire, remember, fire is a man's best friend. You need a sturdy pocket knife with a tin opener and a saw, so you can build a shelter if you need to, or you can use the car as a shelter. Look, you don't have to go overboard, but just make certain you've got a nice little kit available. A self-powered flashlight is one of those which you can shake, or turn a little generator to charge the battery, so you don't have a problem with the batteries going flat on you. A sleeping bag, so you can control your thermal situation if you're cold or so on. Some energy bars, that is always lucky to have around. And then the good old roll of duct tape. Now, you can do anything with duct tape. I don't have to tell you too much about that. You need a tow rope. You need jumper cables. Those are normal things you should have in your car in any case. You need the basic spanner sizes, but normally a medium size shifting spanner, a flat and a star screwdriver. You get those little ones when you pull them out and you turn them around, it's then flat and then it's star. And you need to hide some money. So a little bit of money so you have cash available. What is also very nice is that these little MREs, this meals ready to eat. In my Land Cruiser, I've got 3 of them, which means that between myself and my wife, we can share them over 3 days and we will be okay from a food perspective. So what have we sorted out? We sorted out the bleeding. We sorted out the water. Okay. We sorted out the food. We sorted out the temperature situation. You see, and then at the same time, we make certain that if we need a spare wheel, it's pumped up. And we know that somebody can tow us, or we can tow somebody else, or when our battery's flat, we can jump. You prepared. This is definitely a no-brainer. And then forget about it. Chill. Have a braai. Relax. You're now prepared for the basic load shedding situation. So if you're looking at this from a survivalist's perspective, you can survive. Now, when we're looking at the scenario of a blackout or a situation where we're going to be looking at the electricity supplies off for weeks, or in the worst case, months, now that's a different situation. Now, this could really change your life, and it could change it for the worse. So now we're looking at, you definitely need to be prepared for that. But is this something to get worried about? Well, look, I told you guys, a blackout, for a blackout to occur with the system as we got it in South Africa is very slim. It's a very slim situation. So are we going to be worrying about blackout at this stage? Yeah, I don't think we need to go to that extreme, okay? However, there could be a possibility of a brownout where part of the network is lost for days or more, So you could be sitting that you could be off for longer than that maximum 8 hours a day. It could be that you're off for 2-3 days because of a brownout that has occurred. So they don't have enough energy available to continue supply you with just basic load shedding. They need to take you off the grid totally so that they can keep the hospitals and so on going with a little amount of energy that is available. That is normally a brownout type situation. So now the big decision is right, to survive local brownout, okay, you need to decide, you're going to stay at home and survive there, or are you going to bug out? Now you're saying to me, what do you mean? I'm at home, I'm going to stay at home. Well, the thing is that in a blackout situation, to stay at home can become quite a dangerous situation for you. And I'll explain it now. With a bug, when you're looking at a brownout, you're sitting with a situation that you must probably stay at home. And if it goes across towards a blackout, you're going to need to bail out.
Today, the lights were coming on again in parts of New York City, and the citizens there are just beginning to calculate the tremendous cost in confidence and in dollars of last night's total blackout. We have several reports on that. First, from New York, Roger Grimsby.
The clock stopped exactly 24 hours ago, along with just about everything else here in New York. The only lights were automobile lights, otherwise the Great White Way was pitch black. Broadway theaters and restaurants closed up while you could eat by candlelight. It was very difficult to cook by it. Thousands were stranded in the city when airlines, commuter trains, and subways were knocked out of service. Thousands of others, all ages, took to the streets just for the fun of it. After all, New York City gets blacked out only once every 12 years. And there were thousands of others who took to the streets to plunder and to pillage. Over 2,500 looters and vandals arrested during the first 8 hours of the blackout. Many more got away. The looters concentrated on small businesses, mostly in the poorer sections of the city, where unemployment and crime are chronically high. There were more than 40 serious fires. 2 firemen died. Some of the fires were deliberately set, compounding the problem. False alarms, 1,100 of them. Mayor Beam summed it all up by calling it a night of terror. How did it all begin on one of the hottest, steamiest nights of the year in New York City? Well, to the north, towering thunderstorms jolted the rich suburb of Westchester County. Lightning knocked out transmission lines, setting off a cascading series of power station failures. And lights began flickering for 10 million residents in the metropolitan New York area. No lights, no refrigeration, no appliances, no air conditioning, no television, no elevators, and in some of the worst cases, no water. The city was closed down for the day. Things are now taking a turn for the better since it all began 24 hours ago. Don Farmer has details.
Right now, the power people tell us that they have restored service to at least 90% of the metropolitan area. But that still does leave several 100,000 New Yorkers sweating, many in the dark, many without water. But the good news is that things are getting better every hour. We are told just a few moments ago now that the power has gone out again in some portions of the city which had been restored to power earlier in the day. Part of Kennedy Airport is dark again, we're told, and at least 3 other neighborhoods in the borough of Queens are dark again. But the power company officials had predicted that that might happen, the surge of power causing more power outages as the lights begin to flicker back on. But we can tell you now that things are getting better every hour. Most of the trains and buses and planes are running. They're in business, if not always on schedule. Most of the radio and television stations and newspapers are operating again. The electric company now says its educated guess, its hope is that full power will be restored to the entire New York area by midnight tonight. The political leaders already are into some hot arguments over who's to blame for all of this, but the worst of the real crisis seems to be over now. Still, this has been a miserable day for millions of New Yorkers. The problem which began last night did not burn off with the sunrise, and many of those people who could sleep, many of them could not, but those who could awoke to discover that there was more hot... The problems which began last night did not burn off with the sunrise. Many of those people who could sleep awoke to more hot, muggy weather and more troubles. The power had not been restored to at least half the affected area. And the troubles were compounded by the troublemakers, the looters, the thieves. By mid-afternoon, more than 2,700 persons had been arrested, most of them for looting. 1 policeman had been shot. As many as 78 policemen have been injured so far. And the fires roared into the dawn. 650 separate fires in the city by late afternoon. 2 persons died in them. More than 40 firemen were injured. But the peaceful people tried to maintain a tenuous routine, doing something silly, but needing to do something as they waited, frustrated.
Now, folks, what we saw there is not really a blackout, it was more a brownout. Now, the problem you have is that whole scenario of people going ape once the network is down. Now, let's take a look in the event of a brownout. 3 days maximum. Okay. Well, I would say that you get back and stay at home from work and you survive at home comfortably. Don't go to work or leave home. Stay at home. And then you can be prepared for the situation as follows. The main reason you keep a low profile by surviving at home is to evade that possible chaos out there, as we saw in that movie. And that chaos out there is where your big danger sits. And if people start getting worried and starts to look for resources, they're going to end up possibly at your home wanting to get hold of your resources. Now, if the power utility have successfully managed to get the power stations back by day 1, it's fine, you're fine. And then normally what would happen is by day 2, all your critical loads will be energized, and your critical loads is typically your water pumping stations, your public transport, the sewage systems. Because remember, when the electricity is down, then you're going to run out of water. You're going to have no sewage. Fuel's not going to be available. So they first get all these critical loads back on, and here's a list of all the critical loads. So by day 3, when they have this all going and so on, you're fine. But if you don't feel safe and you feel that you would like to treat it as a blackout, you bug out. And that means you need to go to a place where there's fresh water, because remember the survival rules of 3. Water is very critical by day 3. And you need to be far away from civilization. So, yeah, man, go and camp. Gaan vat 'n lekker boskamp, you know. And there you basically then bug out and away from civilization, and you listen to the radio, and once the news comes through that everything is now coming to an end, sorted out and so on, enjoy the week. Go for a camping holiday. until the brownout is over and you come back home. But you need to be prepared for that to be able to do that. Not everybody can just like get into the car and go camping. And also you need to identify a place where you will have nice water and where you will be able to camp without any other resources and far away from people. So if you decide to stay at home, okay, your water supply is going to be very, 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 very important. So you need water to flush your toilet. You're going to need good quality water for drinking and cooking and your hygiene. So the best thing you can do, and water is a big issue in South Africa, other than just the electricity supply. Water supply is a big issue. It's becoming more and more of a big issue. Install a water harvesting tank. It's easy. You take the rainwater from your roof, you then go, it filters out the leaves and stuff, and then the other stuff that comes down from the roof falls in here and accumulates down here, and you can just basically release it down here, but the water then stabilizes in here and flows over into your tank, and in your tank you can keep your water. Now this tank can be connected directly up onto your water supply system, and you can have a pressure pump there, or you can use gravity feed or whatever, but you can have water available. If you're not really sitting in a situation, you can use the last bit of water from your geyser, or even water from your jacuzzi or water from your swimming pool and so on. But have water available, because water is from a survival perspective is very critical. So in that brownout situation, you will be sitting with a problem that you don't have enough water. Okay, yes, you can maybe store 5-liter bottles of water somewhere and so on, and build up a stash. But look, it's in any case best to install water harvesting system tank on your system, just to prepare yourself for the situation where you might have a water shortage. Then what you do then to your little UPS is that you can now connect up solar panels if you wanted to prepare for a brownout. I don't do this, it's not necessary, but if you're worried about a brownout, then you need to put up solar panels so that you can charge the system within 6 hours, okay? And so then you know you can handle the brownout situation, because now there's no electricity from the grid that can basically charge your battery backup, okay? You can use a generator as well to charge it, but the easiest is just to, so if you're worried about the brownout and you're really concerned about it, put up your solar panels. You're looking for this little system here, most probably at 400 watt panels to do that. Now, the next, if you've got a generator, you need to make certain that you've got a spare gas for it. And it's very good to have spare gas bottles for your gas stove. And man, a boer must have braaiwood, okay? So get yourself a nice stash of braaiwood and always have it available, because remember that a fire is a man's best friend. Controlled fire, which you control, obviously. So now you've got spare gas, you've got fuel for the generator if you have one. But I must say, this generator for home use, that's a very noisy option. And braaiwood, you must always have braaiwood. Then another very important and handy thing to do is to have a 7-day revolving food storage cupboard. So that means that you always have 7 days worth of food at home. So if you're stuck at home suddenly for 3 days, means that you've got a revolving food storage. So you can go on up to 7 days before you run out of food. The other thing which is very important, and especially for us guys getting older and so on, or on medicines and so on, you have a 6-week revolving medicine storage. So that means that your medicine will last for 6 weeks, and before you need to restock your medicine. So I've got this revolving medicine storage situation. So irrelevant of what happens, at least, and then also you need to chat to your doctor and say, listen here, if I run out of medicines, okay, what do I do? How can I handle my chronic situation without medicines? Okay, but that is something if you go into a blackout. But in the case of a brownout, and this in any case is good practice to your system at home. Now, self-defense could become an issue when you decide that in a brownout situation you stay at home. Now, I've got this little bear claw little knife and I know how to use it. I've done self-defense courses on how to use it. Very effective way of doing it. And then the other is to make use of these what we call them pencil flares. They are used on boats and so on, and they are very efficient. What you do there is you shoot the guy on the chest, and it's magnesium, and it's a very effective way of doing it. But you can, and look, this is not something you're going to want to utilize, but as a last resort, and that's all you have. And you can legally own it, and it's not too expensive to purchase. I've got one in my car, I've got one in front of my bed, and it's just there instead of making use of a firearm. This is also a very effective way of protecting yourself instead of making use of a firearm. Well, you've got that all in place. You sit back, listen to the news, and wait it out. Have a nice cup of coffee from your flask and just stay vigilant and make certain from a safety perspective you're okay. And that's it. You can ride out a brownout. And that is very much, I would say, is probably the worst case situation in South Africa. So with very little, you can prepare yourself for that type of situation. Now, things become a little bit more serious when we're looking at a blackout, where we're off without electricity for weeks or months, okay? Right, folks, then you bug out. Because to stay at home and close to, it depends where home is. I'm in the middle of the Knysna forest, and I will be handling a blackout at my home here because it's already actually in an environment where I can survive a blackout. But if you're in town and you're sitting close to areas where you could possibly be expecting problems from, you bug out. And to bug out, you prepare as follows. You're already prepared for a brownout. Okay, so, and that's now by the end of day 3, after you've done your brownout part, you say, oops, that's it. Now it's blackout. Now I need to bug out. And that means that Eskom has not been able to get the network up and running by day 2. Critical loads haven't been connected. And you're certain that things are now going to start going downhill from here because the safety scenario has now really become an issue. Then you basically do something in this line. This is a little house which I had in the Cederberg Mountains, and I actually prepared it as a bug out home, but at the same time it's a weekend getaway home, and it's got a very good freshwater supply from the mountain, and it's fully stocked for 6 weeks with extra fuel, and it's far away from the civilization and so on. And this is a nice option because I've got my own little UPSC there, my own power supply with my solar panels and my water heating and I've got enough dry wood, and I've got my parabolic solar dish cooker and my gas hob for my cooking and so on, and my braai area and so on. So yeah, you basically have a little weekend getaway place, and at the same time it's your bug out place, and that is a very nice option. For those who can't afford a little holiday weekend breakaway, well, what you do is you build up a little camper, or you get yourself a little camping trailer, and you set it up for a bug out environment, and there you basically, you can put in a lovely breakaway bush holiday type of and keeping it stocked all the time and having it fully prepared all the time has got the advantage that when you decide you want to quickly go away for a weekend, you just get in and go. Which is fantastic. It's a fantastic, and then also at the same time, by going quite often camping and so on, you can prepare yourself with practical experience on how to handle a bug out situation, and it's fantastic. By the way, this is my ox wagon, and well, I won't be hitching up the oxen to bug out, but if you really want to go in that direction, you can try it out. And the more remote and away you are from people, the safer you'll be. That is now for the worst case scenario of a blackout. Far away from people, set up for 6 weeks to be able to survive without anything, having enough water supply, and having a camp or bug out environment. You can also go and do it on a friend's farm, maybe that's far away enough from civilization or so on, or just prepare your car with suitable stuff so that you can pitch up a little tent or whatever and have enough stuff for your car. Maybe in your garage, just store a bag with your bug out tent and stuff so that if you want to, you can throw it in your car and you can go and bug somewhere and enjoy the experience and chill out. Don't, the more you worry about it, the less you're going to survive. So it's that first survival rule of 3. Say, hey, I'm going to make it. I'm okay. I'm fine. And if you maintain a simplistic survival lifestyle, and you become a little bit more independent of the modern communities, it's easy to handle. And if you remember the survival rules of 3s, really, it's not a big issue. So I think one needs to be very careful when you look at this whole situation. You need to say to yourself, listen here, when I look at this whole situation here, the worst case situation in South Africa is most probably going to be a brownout. To handle a brownout, I need to make certain I've got water at home. I need to make certain I've got revolving cupboards with food and I've got revolving medicines. Then I've got a little UPS which I can charge with a solar array, and I basically have set up my energy resources at home that I've got either gas or dry wood or solar cookers or so on to be able to handle that 3 days. Hey man, 3 days is not a train smash, okay? And then in a situation as we're sitting now, we're sitting with load shedding. So to be prepared for load shedding is even easier. So you want to have the luxuries which you normally have around you during normal supply. So, well, to handle the luxuries, you need to sort out, I want hot water so I can make tea and coffee, and I want a little bit of light, and I want to be able to continue with my computer, and I want to continue watching the TV, and the children must be able to do their homework and continue doing their homework, okay, so that's cool. And at the same time, I want to make certain that I can charge my cell phone or keep my cell phone going and so on. And so then you put in a little UPS to sort that out. And then when it comes to the cooking side, irrelevant of load shedding, use a Wonder Bag to ease your load at home to do your cooking with. So you don't need to do much. But I can tell you, irrelevant of load shedding or not, make certain that you have a backup water system by harvesting the water from your roof. That is irrelevant of any load shedding or anything, is to have a good water supply at home. That's a very important part of the survival rules of 3. And folks, that's it. Hope that the information that we've been discussing is of use and will be able to set your mind at ease and be able to help you to live comfortably with controlled load shedding. So from the Knysna Forest, this is Dr. Wallace Vosloo. All of the best and beat the dark.
I'm load shedding ready. Boom, 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 boom. I'm load shedding ready.